Hi, my name's Alistair White and this is my first video in a series on my TL2105 Sports for International Development video. In this presentation I shall explain the function of aid and development from both a historical and contemporary point of view, but also how sport is used as a tool to accomplish this. Aid is used as short-term assistance to help support issues that face low economically developed countries. This aid is given to these countries by other governments or organisations trying to help the country's development. According to UK Parliament, aid includes technical assistance, debt relief and transfers to multilateral agencies. It excludes military and direct peacekeeping assistance. What is international development? International development is all about improving people's lives in some of the poorest countries in the world. The aims of this is to develop countries so people no longer live in poverty, boost economic growth, reduce inequalities and improve people's standard of living. All of this is carried out by other richer, more economically developed countries or global organisations specialised in development, providing loans and grants for programs to make the improvements. Things to consider when developing are mortality rates, the access to education, employment opportunities, conflict that may affect a country, and gender inequalities. Non-governmental organisations. The term NGO, according to Del Campo, Hamada et al., came into currency in 1945 because of the need for the UN to differentiate in its charter between participation rights for intergovernmental specialised agencies and those for international private organisations. Features of an NGO include no link or control from the government. An NGO is not a political party, not for profit, not part or be a criminal group, and non-violent. An example of an NGO is Save the Children. This is a registered charity working in 68 different countries around the world, helping children save their lives and build their futures by protecting the children in danger, tackling poverty, improving health and nutrition, helping malnourished children survive, fight for children's rights, help children get an education. As you can see, the video on the right also is an example of Save the Children videos back in 2010, where it talks about no child is born to die. Governmental organisations. GOs are when the government set up and run their very own projects. Each country's government's projects vary depending on the government's aims, objectives and resources available to them. These projects run in their own country but also in other countries through UK aid to multi-country global programmes helping the UN achieve their goals. An example of a GO is the Department for International Development in the UK. The Department for International Development leads the UK's work to end extreme poverty. We are tackling the global challenges of our time, including poverty and disease, mass migration, insecurity and conflict. Our work is building a safer, healthier, more prosperous world for people in developing countries and in the UK too. Millennium Development Goals. MDGs goals were set up in 2000 at the UN Millennium Assembly in mind they would be achieved by 2015. Despite many improvements, there is still a significant amount of people left behind, especially the poorest and those disadvantaged because of their sex, age, disability, ethnicity or geographic location. As you can see from the picture on the right hand side, they are the 8 MDGs that came up with in the Assembly. Sustainable Development Goals. SDGs build on the success built from the MDGs. According to UN, sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. For sustainable development to be achieved, 3 core elements must be achieved: economic growth, social inclusion and environmental protection. These current SDGs on the right were set up on the 25th September 2015. These goals are now set for the next 15 years until 2030. Contemporary development and aid projects. An example of this was the Marshall Plan. It came into picture in World War II after it devastated Central and Western Europe with years of conflict. Infrastructure of countries was ruined, with the majority of the brink of famine, but because of the United States suffering very little damage, they were on hand to help European economic recovery. European nations received nearly $13 billion in aid, which consisted of food, basic living requirements, fuel and machinery. The Marshall Plan was also known as the European Recovery Programme, and as a result of the funding and aid provided through this plan, there was investment in industrial capacity in Europe. As you can see on the right, it shows the amount of millions of dollars invested into each European country, although the Marshall Plan funding ended in 1951. A current development aid project is Soccer Aid. Soccer Aid is run by UNICEF, and it is a charity football match with a range of UNICEF ambassadors, celebrities and ex-footballers. It raises over £20 million for UNICEF to then reinvest in new developments and aid project. Through the funding that has been raised, which is over £24 million, 2.71 million people have received vaccine doses in over 100 countries, reaching 40% of the world's children. 13.8 million people have got improved drinking water and 11.3 million getting better sanitation. And lastly, 10,500 schools have now received new upgraded washing facilities, including separate loos for girls and boys. Thank you for listening to the first video of this 3-video series. Please stay tuned for the next video coming up shortly.